Hello, and welcome once again to the video. In this one, I thought I would take a look at another Bhurago F1 model car that I have. I've done a few of these, still got a few to go, and this one is the most recently bought one, which I wasn't able to get for a long time, but I was recently able to get hold of it. This is, of course, an Aston Martin, and it is the AMR23. Which rather neatly took part in the 2023 World Championship. Let me lift it up so we can have a look. I need to make sure it's in focus. That should be in focus. So there you go. The AMR 2023. Driven by Lance, Stroll and Fernando Alonso. It was Fernando Alonso's first year at Aston Martin. I keep wanting to say Aston, but Aston, I don't like being lazy with the O's in words. But yeah, Aston does sound better than Aston, which doesn't sound right at all. Okay, so the AM23. Now this car suddenly took off in the 2023 World Championship with some fantastic performances. In the very first race, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll had a coming together at the very first corner. I think it was the first corner of the first lap. I remember thinking, oh, that's not good for their future together. It's the first time that they had raced together. But in that race, Fernando Alonso was third, finished third in the end, doing some late overtaking manoeuvres. To get third place would have been fourth had Leclerc not retired late in the race, but third place for Fernando Alonso. And Lance Stroll came sixth despite having a busted up wrist. I'm not sure if it was actually broken, but he missed all of testing. Felipe Drugovich stepped in for the testing. 3 days of testing at Bahrain. I think there was only 3 days in 2023. Lance Stroll missed the testing and then turned up to the race weekend with a bandaged up wrist and managed to come home sixth. And I remember Lawrence Stroll looking, I've never seen him look so proud. Basically, he looks so proud of what Stroll had managed to do. Sixth place with a busted wrist. It was a very good performance. But as I've said many times before, often these drivers get more motivated if they are suffering from some kind of ailment. I do. When I go to work, I tend to work better when I'm a bit ill, because it's like you have an excuse for not doing such a good job, and because of that you relax and you end up doing a better job. Lance Stroll would have had a massive excuse if he had crashed out in the first lap because of his wrist. So I think that does enhance your performance. It's still a great effort. Lando Norris always seems to drive better when he has a cold, I've noticed over the years. You sort of lift your performance to compensate, plus you have a big excuse, which is great for your psychological performance. It's great to have an excuse in your back pocket if you need it, either a busted wrist or a cold. But yeah, great performance in that first race. Why was the Aston Martin so quick straight off the bat? Well, it's a Mercedes customer, so it had the Mercedes engine, and it had the Mercedes gearbox, and the rear end setup as well was all Mercedes. But Mercedes at the time were not doing particularly well, of course, and were bouncing all over the place. But they also did copy, or tried to copy, with the previous AMR22, they tried to copy Red Bull's high rake at the rear. And their 2022 car was not particularly good, has to be said. But in 2023, a number of employees came across from Red Bull, including, is that in focus or is it jumping around everywhere? Including Dan Fallows, who was the chief aerodynamicist or something at Red Bull, working closely with Adrian Newey. And he came across as the technical director. And, well, I suppose we have to give him credit for the amazing stuff he did with the car. I think that's what made it particularly fast, the aerodynamics. Basically, Adrian Newey inspired aerodynamics from Dan Fallows. But it took part in all 22 races, and it had 8 podiums and 1 fastest lap. Those 8 podiums, 5 of them came in the first 6 races. You remember they were solidly second in the championship, with Alonso solidly third in the championship behind the 2 Red Bulls for the first third of the season, until other drivers and other teams caught them up and overtook them. But in the first how many races? 8. Yeah, they finished on the podium. Alonso finished on the podium 6 of the first 8 races. And in total over the year, there were 8 podiums. I think all of the 8 podiums, were scored by Alonso, unfortunately for Stroll. But Stroll still did, not too bad. He finished 10th in the championship with 74 points, but he was thoroughly beaten by double world champion Alonso, who was finished 4th in the championship in the end with 206 points. And the team were 5th, but they had been 2nd for a long time, but they ended up 5th with 280 points. In fact, the first race that Alonso finished outside the top 4 was Spain, where he was 7th, his home race. But yeah, they were 2nd in, where were they 2nd? I had to write these down, so I couldn't remember exactly. Monaco. Yep, I remembered that one though. Monaco, Canada, and later in the year, Netherlands. I remember that one, the Dutch Grand Prix, where Alonso, even though the Aston Martin had gone off the boil in the second third of the championship, it started to come back again in the final third of the championship. And that showed itself with a 2nd in Netherlands and a 3rd place in Brazil. 3 second places and 5 third places is what the 8 podiums were. And Alonso finished in the points in 19 of the 22 races. Unbelievable. Including, I think, the first 11. I think he went the first 11 races in the points. But really, it's all down to, Alonso's great racecraft and longevity, it has to be said, coupled with Dan Fallows and the aerodynamic improvements that he brought across from Red Bull. It's a great model. It has the colour just right, that sort of sparkly green, sort of like beetle green. Maybe it is called beetle green. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know what that type of green is called, but it just reminds me of a beetle shell, basically. Very nice. Let's get it a bit closer. Jumping around a little bit. Let's get it up. Oh, let's see, I need to get it up there for the thumbnail, don't I? So we want a good thumbnail shot, don't we? But I don't want the thumbnail to include one of my salt lamps, so I'm just going to push that out of shot. Okay, so let's see if I can get this nicely in focus. Hopefully that's nicely in focus. What a beautiful model. I love these Bhurago models, they're fantastic. Just plastic, but they're just don't know if there's any metal in them at all, but it certainly just feels like plastic. But they're so good. They're not wonky at all. The rear wings and front wings are not wonky, as has happened with lots of die-cast metal ones I've bought in the past. These are great. I love them. Okay, so I think that just about finishes the video for now. Let's place this down. I'll get it back into focus quickly. That should be back in focus. Let's try that again, just to make absolutely doubly sure. Okay, so there you have it. The AMR, the Aston Martin, I suppose that AMR stands for Aston Martin Racing. I mean, if it does, I give them a big round of applause for the names of their cars. The Aston Martin Racing 23. Do we need the racing bit? I know lots of teams put in the racing bit. Why do you always need the word racing afterwards? Can't it just be AM23? Anyway, still a lot better than some of the silly names that you see where the numbers don't even follow on from one year to the next. I'm looking at you, Ferrari. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I will see you on the next video. If you want to leave a comment, please do so, or please subscribe. And if you want to like the video, or if you want to leave a tip on the video, on the thanks button just below the video. But until we meet again, it's goodbye from me. See you later.